So on that,
go ahead, sir.
on that first day of school, you had to have a police escort take the 11 students in.
Right.
You sat down, and you know you had the difference in the academics. What else? Tell me about what it felt like.
Well, the first day, the school, everything was calm. In fact, we did not have the police car the first day because we were just going to school.
Right.
Okay, and we did our normal thing. We didn't have to have any kind of like escorts or anyone. We just had the parents and of the family, other students' parents took us in their cars. So we walked into the school with our notebooks, brand new pencils, sat down in different classes, we were told. Now they had basically 3 homerooms. So they put 4 students in each classroom and 3 in the third homeroom. So they split us up. So when we got to our homeroom, the teachers introduced themselves. Now they were courteous but not friendly.
They knew you were coming?
They knew we were coming a few days just before we were to go. Now there was no big meeting or kind of conference to say that these 11 black students are going to go to the all-white school. They kind of like slid us in under the radar, if you will, and no one, basically, the parents did not know that we were even there. The school board did. And they told the teachers that we were going to be, you're going to have this September the 8th, you're going to have 11 black students attending your school. Now, the interesting thing about the teachers is that they lived in the white communities, and they knew that if they showed, this is the assumption that I made in writing my book, that they felt very strongly that if they showed too much attention to the black students or showed undue friendliness to the black students, that they could be ostracized by the community because they live in that community, and they were very concerned about what the community would think of them. And now teaching these 11 black students. So the teachers were they were courteous but not friendly.
Right.
And they just basically said, good morning, welcome to our school, turn to page 47, we're working on algebra, and start doing our work. Now I looked at that book and I'm saying, you got to be kidding me. I mean, this is something I've never had before. So at the end of the first class, I went to the teacher. I said, along with some other students, I said, well, we really haven't had algebra yet. Well, she said very politely that you're going to have to get some independent counseling and teaching. Maybe you'll have to have a tutorial somewhere else to get some assistance so that you can be able to do the homework. I won't have time to spend a lot of time teaching you something you never had, so you'll have to get it from the outside. And that was an assumption. That was my first shock to my system to realize that this is really going to be a challenge for us.
Right.
Then, as the students went home, the white kids began to tell their parents, guess what, Mom, I've got a colored kid in my class. And she said, the parents would say, well, what are you talking about? There's no colored kids going here. Well, yeah, it is. Today we had some colored kids. So the phones began to ring, and then all of a sudden we realized that there was a climate of anticipation of our being in that school was not going to be accepted by the white community. And as the days went on, by the third day, the crowds began to build outside of the school. And it went from maybe a couple hundred to a couple thousand. And that's when we went and got the police car. Now, it was very interesting in getting the police car to take us to school. The local police refused to take us to school because they felt that I don't want to be seen being friendly to these 11 black students by putting them in my police car and taking them to school. So we had to get the state police to come by your house and pick you up and take you to school, because the local police lived in the community where the students went, where the parents of the students lived, and they felt that they would be intimidated by other parents. In fact, some of them were, by showing any kind of kindness to the black students.
Right. One thing you said, it really made me think back, because I came along a lot later, and by the time I came along, schools were integrated, and I went to school early on with black students and white students in elementary school. So even though I had the experience there, there was still quote unquote segregation going on. And one thing I found when I started going to my predominantly black schools was that our books were secondhand.
Right, yeah, you're absolutely right.
They came from the white schools when they finished with the books. Then we got them. But the excellency of my teachers would take those old books and then they would use their experience and knowledge and add to.
You're absolutely right.
Fill in the gaps, you know. And I'm not going to take too much time because this is our guest time.
No, that's fine.
But I wanted to share. I was a part of the first class during the so-called desegregation. I was the last class at Bancroft School under my principal,
Doc Pritchett.
Doc Pritchett.
Shout out. I know Pritchett.
And so what they did was they Mr. Pritchett, first of all, everybody at Bancroft, which was basically all black, they prepared us for what we were going to face. Just like you said, Attorney Redding and Reverend Fisher prepared you guys because whether we see it or not, it is a milestone to go in somewhere. And you said you were looking at it from an opportunity standpoint versus an integration standpoint. But willing or unwilling, that's what the outcome was.
We were not smart enough to be afraid. We just felt that this was a great opportunity, and because we knew some of the white kids from the summer that we played with them,
I understand
that we felt that this is probably not going to be a big deal. And not knowing all the behind the scenes kind of thing, that the school board did not notify the community, they did not spend a lot of time educating people of this major change. So we felt that it wouldn't be a big deal that to do it, to go to school. Then all of a sudden, by the third day, the crowds were there. Some of us were intimidated by the white parents, and it's very difficult to have an educational opportunity when people are calling you all kinds of names.
I understand.
It was very interesting. One of the things they did, they would break light bulbs so that would scare you on the street sidewalks, so you would jump and flinch as if maybe a gunshot was going off. But it was the light bulbs for the most part. So we did not experience any kind of physical hostilities except for the fact that the parents began to holler all kinds of names, and then the attendance in the school began to drop. But back to your earlier point, when we were in Benjamin Banneker Elementary School, most of our books were hand-me-downs. In fact, we didn't have magic markers like you do today with the yellow highlight, but we just had people would take a pencil or a ballpoint pen and underline certain words. And our books had underlines and scribbles and Mary Loves Joe on the side and so forth, and we used those books as our main source of education. And what was we were proud of the fact that our teachers, to your point again, took those books and turned them into a learning experience beyond what the underlined words were and the Mary Loves Joe on the side and all that. They gave us a quality education that was second to none. I felt very strongly that I was satisfied that I had learned a lot from the black elementary school of Benjamin Banneker. But most importantly, we were confident that when we left Benjamin Banneker, that we got a good education.
That's it.
And we can deal with this situation across town.
That's it.
And then we felt that we could go in and be successful. Until we opened up the new textbooks that showed algebra and subjects that we had not had.
Did the students offer to help you with the math?
Very helpful.
Okay.
Well, let me put it another way. I wouldn't say the word very helpful. They were helpful.
Okay.
But one of the things that's very difficult is that the students lived in the communities, and they didn't know what to do really. They were kind of friendly, but they didn't want to be too friendly because they're not sure what their parents would say or whatever the case may be.